Good morning, everyone. John Sfiocchi here with GAI Insights with our Gen AI news briefing, where we rate the top news as essential, important, or optional. I'm talking to you from beautiful Marshfield, Massachusetts. Absolutely gorgeous here today. The lobsters are hopping, and we are going to get into it. We have a number of articles that are that run from some interesting case studies all the way through a revisitation of the idea of artifacts and what they might mean for development. I think it's a huge deal. So let's see. Ankash, if you could get us into the first article, please.
Thanks, John. So first one that we have for today comes from VentureBeat and is authored by Michael Nunes, and it talks about why Anthropic's artifacts may be the most important AI feature.
Thanks, Ankash. I know we talked a little bit about this last week, but this is a little more of an explication. Gonna spend a little more time on it. Adam, what do you think?
Well, articles may be the most important AI feature. They also may not. And this article is a bit speculative. I thought it emphasizes some cool points about the importance potentially of where this is going, and as they call it, the interface battle, right? And that Anthropic's really taking a different tack than OpenAI and Google that are going after speeds and feeds and capabilities. And this is more about the user experience and how we actually use these things and interact with them. As I said, it also very much may not be the most important feature. I start thinking about in the very near future when we have one of these large language models on our home computer and it's seeing everything we're doing and we're talking to it. This idea of, oh, look, you can have your code right next to the chatbot is going to seem very obsolete very quickly by comparison. So I get where he's going. I think the concept is important, but I'm on the edge sort of between optional and important in terms of this article itself, particularly when they say, oh, this is going to be so important for all of these things. And then all three of the examples are how people built mini games with the chatbot.
Yeah.
And it's like, this isn't really an enterprise grade tool. Honestly, that's been my experience so far as a coding assistant as well. So
Gotcha.
I'm sort of optional important on the edge there.
All right. So OI coming into this.
I'm gonna
game or genius. Go ahead.
I'm gonna make the argument to push us over to important. I called this article out actually in my comic yesterday because it was echoing some of the sentiments I was sharing on Friday when we were talking about Anthropic's new release. I think the title is a little overstated. I will definitely say that. However, I do think that the user interface is more important than a lot of these LLM providers have been giving it credit for to date. We want adoption, right? We want our employees to use these tools. And yes, eventually, a lot of what we're seeing right now might be abstracted away, but there's just still a ton of skepticism out there when you talk to the average worker about using these tools, and they're hearing, all of these crazy things about AI is going to take over the world, or AI is definitely going to take your job, or everything that comes out of it is wrong, or there's just so much misconceptions right now. And I think anything that you can do to make the experience easier and help employees see what it can do is a boost. And I think there's a long way to go in making the user interfaces of some of these tools more user friendly. And I love what Anthropic did here. And, I think, Adam, you said you don't feel like the coding tool is enterprise grade, but I mean, they're clearly making a push to the enterprise. They've said they're doing it now. This is part of it, trying to give a workspace, to really make it work better with your workflow. So I just think putting the exclamation point on this for an AI leader to talk about how the user experience is important, because look, last mile, right? Adoption is always the hardest part in embedding a technology in your org. I would go with important for those reasons.
All right, I'm leaning toward important, Paul.
Yeah, I support important. I mean, I think there's two layers. One's the interface, and one's what the data is being accessed. And I think we've certainly in my mind, I'm really starting to become becoming more skeptical of in-app LLMs, because I think employees, they just want the answer. And if it happens to go to the Salesforce database and my G Drive and my other areas, I just want the answer. But I do agree, Dave. Now, it's support important.
Yeah, I think there's a fundamental thing underneath here, which is, one of my AI professors many years ago said, a lot of times the creation of new intelligence comes not from a better algorithm, but a better representation of the problem. And I think that that's true of this, both at the interface level and also at the multimodal, multi-expert level on the model. So, all right, we're landing on important. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one comes from OpenAI, and it talks about the latest acquisition of Rockset that they have done.
All right, we have another story of liquidity in the venture market. OpenAI buys Rockset, although I think this is only the second company they've purchased, even though they've got more money than God. Well, I don't know how much money God has, but they've got a lot of money. So what are we looking at here, David?
Yeah, but remember, a lot of that money is flowing over to Microsoft for all their compute needs at this point. But good that they had a little pocket change to buy up this small outfit. So Rockset is a small company that apparently was founded by a few Facebook engineers several years ago, and they provide data infrastructure. And it looks like specifically they're purchasing this company's assets and employees so that they could do better with retrieval augmented generation and the use of real-time data. So, I hesitate to make it important. I mean, it's good to know that this upgrade is coming. Obviously, this is aimed at the enterprise customer, and potentially this is going to help OpenAI's own consumer-facing products as well.
Yep.
So I'm still going to go on optional for this one for the moment.
All right, so we got an acqui-hire, maybe get a couple of customers while they're at it, some functionality. Adam, where are we? Optional?
Yeah, optional as well. I mean, this is somewhere down around like research or a product announcement in my book, in terms of, like, it's cool they got them. It might have been as much for the talent as anything else. But I don't. There's nothing here that's really earth-shattering or a change in direction about how OpenAI is going to go about their business.
All right, I'm feeling a nothing burger from Paul. Yes?
Yeah.
All right, optional. All right, next.
Okay, the next one comes from the drum and is authored by WebRight, and it talks about how Target has embraced generative AI with a store companion.
All right, so we have Target. McDonald's just had little Egg McMuffin on their face as they just took theirs down. Over 100 deployments now coming out of McDonald's. What do you think here with Target? Is Target off target or on target with this one as we get to me? I think we're on target with Target. They note the fact that McDonald's just pulled their generative AI robot, which was doing silly things in the drive-thru for some customers. This is going to be internally only. Internal employee productivity. We'll see more of this notion at Bain. Target. I can only imagine, having gone to a bunch of Targets, that this will enhance the consumer experience because. Let us just say, most informed are not the first two words that come to mind when I deal with a lot of their sales associates on the floor. So to the extent that this can help bring back the beauty of retail, but I'm going to call it an optional, even though it's an interesting story. So like that, optional. What do you folks think?
I support optional. I mean, this is, this internal knowledge assistant tool is quickly becoming table stakes, and we've talked about many companies of Target size or larger doing it. So I don't think Target jumping into the game here is really significant news.
Yeah, David, this is like software companies. That it's only notable in software companies if this is not in your roadmap. And the only thing notable now is you're a big company and not doing employee knowledge bases.
Yeah. All righty, Adam. I don't imagine you object to that.
Yeah, no, all good.
David,
And Michael
David,
Novak
John's
asked,
feeling very magnanimous today. You know, it's getting all these voices in. Chalk hasn't come out once.
well, the republic only has to stand against the democracy in certain instances.
I see.
That's the
Look,
importance.
as long as we think John is right, he is happy to let us have our way.
That's true. Well, and he's got the lobster boat in front of him too, so I think that's really distracting him a bit.
All right. Michael says, "Hey, look, is best employee performance equals reduction in workforce?" Sure, Michael. I think this is going to lead to labor productivity, aka fewer people. But I think it's also going to improve the employee experience. And I'm convinced that private equity is going to take generative AI and AI, and given how powerful they are in the marketplace, how many firms they own, how many billions they have to put to work, trillions actually, we're going to see a lot of labor reduction in the near term, I think. But it'll take a while, and it's not going to be overnight. And it's not going to be a wholesale replacement. People are thinking about it too simplistically. Anyway, all right. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one comes from Bain and Company. So this talks about a recent quarterly executive survey on AI they conducted, and they discuss the key themes emerging out of it.
All right, the Baniacs are at it again, looking at what the important trends are in their quarterly survey. What do you think, Adam? I'm surprised to see you might actually give a consultant important. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I was surprised as well. I went into this with a little I guess I was not so sure it would impress, but it actually did a fairly good job. They conducted a survey back in October of last year and then February again of this year, and between the specifics around where sentiment has moved and some of the places where you see there's more benefit from the use cases, I think it's worthwhile read. It actually goes. I had Echo summarize for us, but because it says there's four things, and it's like, what are the four things? So one is focusing on results for real business value rather than experimentation.
Ankash, can you troll down through? Sorry, go ahead.
Organizational readiness, actually having successful use cases that prove the value, and then deliberating between buy versus build, and sort of seeing in which use cases which enterprises are doing more of what. So there was actually a fairly extensive amount of insight. Like just right there, those numbers, the +10 or the -10, that's between surveys how much the sentiment has changed in what direction. Mm-hmm. So you can sort of see as the industry is maturing, what people are finding and how it's changing their direction.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting here, two things that really stood out to me was how the tech platform's not ready and the data aren't ready. But for sure. So we have an important from Adam for the consultants. Woohoo! What do you think here, Paul?
I know. I think definitely important. I mean, we should hear a lot from customers trying to understand and deal with expectation management and understanding or feeling like, or the executive feeling like they're behind. And I think this is a good piece of data to have in the back pocket to show them that, they're not behind, but data readiness, org readiness are non-trivial. And I think it also reinforces what we're seeing again and again is that the number one use case is coding and the second one's customer service. So important.
Yeah, I think this is consistent with our, suggested model to folks of educate, operationalize, transform, because there you can see that the sentiment has pulled back a little from product facing and and customer facing and new product stuff, but really ramped up in terms of the operationalize. Yeah. David, anything important to add here?
I just want to say, along with Adam, I entered this with skepticism and expected to see the survey and questions very similar to McKinsey's and some of the other ones we've seen recently. And I was pleasantly surprised with the nature of the questions and how I feel like they reflect that they understand, what the AI leader is really thinking about. So I definitely would put it as important. I was actually borderline essential because I thought because of the granularity of the questions that an AI leader could really benchmark their experience against this one much better than they could with some of the other surveys.
All right. Well, we're going to end democracy right now. We're going to go for essential on this one. How about that?
Adam, we couldn't go a whole session without
executive order. Executive order 4257. Shh. There we go. The executive branch has power. Don't forget.
They don't make the chalk not to be used.
Exactly. All right, Ankash, we're going essential for the Baniacs.
Okay, the next one comes from Reckitt, and it talks about how Reckitt is using GenAI pilots across operations, product development, and marketing.
So we have Reckitt and Coleman coming in here. David, what do you think?
Yes, and I have to admit, I didn't realize that this was the name of the manufacturer for company products such as Clearasil and Lysol and Woolite. So that was a education for me.
There you go.
I
taking your CPG IQ up a couple levels.
That's right. That's right.
Alrighty.
I surprised myself and put an important on this one.
Woo.
Here's the reason. So
Okay.
there's four specific use cases that they discuss here. If you scroll down a little, you can see
Right there.
product development, creative, marketing, sustainability. They actually have some data about what results they saw for some of these. So for example, with product development, they said that they improved the concept quality. I'm not sure how, well, actually they improved the quality and then they reduced the concept development time by up to 60%. Marketing, they said they reduced the time spent by up to 90%. But what made me put this as important was actually the sustainability use case, because with the CSRD, there's going to be a lot of companies.
David, can you just explain CSRD, please?
Sure, I can. So that is a European law about sustainability reporting and requires companies to report on lots of different aspects of their supply chain and their company and how it's creating emissions. And as scope 3 emissions is all the emissions that is happening in your supply chain that's not really directly from your activity. And that's going to need to be reported, which is hard to do. So it looks like Reckitt has used generative AI to help them gather their data and more accurately categorize their data so that they can understand and report where their emissions are coming from. And I mean, this effort that companies are going to have to make is non-trivial and will be expensive and time intensive. So if generative AI can help, I think use it. So that's why I went with important on this one.
All right, we got an important, Adam. I think you landed in the same place.
Yeah, I did. I thought between the really clearly defined examples of use cases along with some solid metrics to back them up. And personally, I'm at our own companies looking at this scope 3 right now ourselves and looking at how other people are starting to get out in front of that and really realize the benefits of Gen AI for it. I think it makes a worthwhile read.
All right, we're heading toward important, and it's very good for the attention-challenged executive, which we seem to kowtow to on a regular basis because it's super short. Paul, can take us off important, or are we going important?
Important.
Important it is. All right, Ankaj, next and final.
Okay, so the last one is a blog from Simon Wilson, and it talks about how training is not the same as chatting with ChatGPT and other LLMs.
All right, training's not the same. This one I signed to me. I thought this was optional, a nice primer in terms of getting folks to understand what is actually shared with the model, where your vulnerability points are, that your data aren't necessarily put into the model, although they might be saved for later training and so forth. So I thought it was a nice read, optional, certainly something that a senior exec could hand off to somebody if they're worried about what the model is actually learning from, what is in the model, and so forth. And it also does a good job, I think, of articulating the uncertainties and where the trust factors are. Who do you have to trust, and what you need to look for, at least at a kind of superficial level, in worrying about your data and your logs as they are put together when you interact with the models. But that's where I came out. What do you folks think? Optional?
I was borderline. I guess I'm going to just make the argument for important just for the heck of it and see if it sticks. I really, because of a lot of the reasons that you said, it felt like, I mean, hopefully the AI leader knows a lot of this already. Fingers crossed there, but they might not necessarily have the language to explain to the leadership why they should be perhaps a little less concerned about data issues than they might be already, because I do think there is a common conception that everything that you put in is going to spit out potentially just like you've put it in, and that is actually more unlikely than a lot of people think. So it was long, and that doesn't stop me because I'm a big reader. The thing is, I don't know if you need to read the whole thing to get that language, but I think if you can read enough of it to get that language and understand that this is an argument that you're going to have to make, even if you don't hear it from your higher up, I think you should state this so that they understand it, because that they've heard everything and seen some of the issues. So I feel like this could be an important one for those reasons.
All right, David, making the case for the ignorant and or inarticulate AI leader. All right, what do you think here, Paul?
Come on, a lot of them are tech people. They're CTOs. They may not have that language right in their back pocket, as Tim says. So
hey, we're Catholic in the open sense of that word. All right, Paul.
Yeah, I'll go with important as well. I mean, it's we've talked to a lot of companies on general, but certainly the last 2 or 3 weeks, and the anxiety and organization by the non-AI enthusiasts of it's taking all their data and all the scary emotion around it, I think is an important one that needs to be educated and tapped down. And this is another tool towards that end.
Adam, you okay with important here, or you are disgusted by the ignorance of our AI leader?
Neither. I'm not okay with important, and I'm not disgusted by their ignorance. Look, I think it's an important point the article is trying to make. I think it uses a lot of words to try and make it, and in the process is probably going to confuse people more than help them clarify. I think it goes in too many directions. It tries to take them into too many rabbit holes, and they're going to end up with a whole bunch of information. And really, all they really need to get is, I think it's the third sentence where it says short version. ChatGPT and other similar tools do not directly learn from and memorize everything you say to them. That's kind of the point, and I felt like it went in too many directions, especially for the length, for them to really be able to extract the key point that we're trying to get with this message. The message is important. I think this article's optional.
Yeah, I mean, look, it wasn't the greatest written piece I've ever seen in my life, but if you just give that high level summary that you said, what's going to be the reaction from the leader if they do have that misconception that that is not the case? They're going to ask why, right? Or what do you mean? I saw XYZ on the news and blah, blah, blah. Like, then you're going to have to give another level of detail. And maybe this gives you some of that detail, and you can piece together a way to say it. You can ask ChatGPT. You could throw this in there and say, if I need to give a concise explanation about why this is not the case, like, give it to me.
Yeah, and you don't need this article to ask ChatGPT about it.
You do if you want it to be correct.
Anyway, that's
all right.
That's my opinion.
All righty. I think I'm going to land on optional, which, but I almost got to important. All right, Ankash, we're looking at optional on that last one. So what's the tote board say today?
Just coming up, John. I had to change it twice from optional to important to
There you go. I didn't mean to pull the rug out from under you there.
He's on the learning lab tonight. Maybe we could talk about that while we wait.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Actually, yeah, no, learning labs. We have a really good night tonight. We have a session on AI agents with a company that's actually building them. So we're going to talk about demystifying them a little bit and what exactly they are, and start going down into understanding the basics. So join us at 7:00 Eastern for Pacific.
Yeah, I know, Adam, you've got a lot of passion around this. So do I. This whole idea of where decision rights are going to sit and how active they're going to be, and what the organizations and markets of the future are going to be, and this whole agentic wave. I think we're just beginning to see that, and it's going to be spectacular, much bigger than the internet, I think. All righty, Ankash, Tote board says, all right, important for Anthropic's artifacts. Yes, once again, repetition is the soul of learning. We are there with artifacts, optional on, acquihires, target, on target, but another story. Essential for our Bainiacs. Good data coming from them, even though David feels like, hey, look, who would expect Bain to do something good? No, only kidding. Then Reckitt at important and optional in training. So pretty important Monday. And hope you find this useful. Look forward to talking to y'all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.